Which are the most underrated moments in One Piece? Well, truth be told, One Piece had and keeps having an abundance of insanely hyped, epic, or even mind-blowing moments throughout its story. But having said that, even though some moments are among the fan favorites and keep getting brought up all the time in discussions, some of them, well, let's just say they are thrown under the rug. Today, we'll be presenting the 30 most epic, but at the same time, both underrated or even forgotten moments in One Piece. Beginning with none other than Luffy's sacrifice in order to protect Nami from Django's throwing chakram towards her. You see, even though in the anime this moment was toned down and thus censored quite a bit, in reality, in the anime, this moment was something more than just brutal. Check this. Once Django threw these deadly chakram towards Nami, Luffy, which at this point in time was not as fast as he is now, nor even knew how to use armament hockey, the only way he knew how to protect Nami was to throw his body in the way in order to save his friend and navigator. When Luffy throws his body in the way to protect Nami from Django's chakram, it vividly encapsulates Luffy's unwavering sense of loyalty and his instinctive drive to protect his friends. This action is quintessential Luffy, impulsive, brave, and self-sacrificial. Despite the danger, Luffy doesn't hesitate for a second, showing his innate courage and the strong bonds he forms with his crew. This act further solidifies the trust and camaraderie within the Straw Hat crew, illustrating the lengths to which Luffy will go to ensure their safety and well-being. But speaking of Luffy saving Nami, well, a truly underrated moment that I don't see many people often bring up is, of course, when Luffy climbed through a snowy mountain with his bare hands in order to find a doctor for Nami. Despite the harsh and treacherous conditions of the snowy mountain, Luffy's resolve never wavers. He faces the freezing cold, steep cliffs, and the physical strain without a second thought, driven by his commitment to save Nami. Luffy's willingness to endure extreme pain and exhaustion for the sake of his friends underscores his selflessness. He prioritizes Nami's health over his own safety, demonstrating the depth of his loyalty and love for his crew. All I'll say is that those who never held snow with their bare hands can't even begin to understand what kind of pain Luffy went through in this moment. Something even more painful, on the other hand, was seeing Garp go all the way to Fuchsia Village in order to be confronted by Dadan after Ace's death. You see, Garp is known for his steadfast adherence to justice and his role as a powerful marine. However, he's also Ace's grandfather and had raised Ace along with Luffy. His conflict between his duty as a marine and his love for his family is brought to the forefront. Beating Dadan for punishment signifies his deep remorse and guilt over not being able to save Ace, despite his position and power. Garp's character is often portrayed as strong and unyielding, but this act of seeking punishment shows his vulnerability and humanity, and in my opinion, this moment is not talked about as much as it deserves. Okay, Garp is, as we mentioned, known for being quite a few things. Strong, kinda stupid from time to time, but the other thing, it's a trait of his that is kind of underrated in my opinion. You see, Garp is seen sleeping all the time without a care in the world at the most random of moments. I mean, people that have difficulty falling asleep know just how lucky Garp really is for being able to sleep just like that. And for the people having difficulties falling asleep, no worries, I got the solution. Buy any sleep mask from Manta Sleep and witness yourself falling asleep faster, having more energy throughout the day, eliminate stress, and overall, become a new person. Believe me, you cannot even imagine how important sleep is for people. That's why Manta Sleep is my go-to solution. Adjustable, easy to use, comfortable. These masks literally tick all the boxes for a better sleep. Check Manta Sleep by clicking the link in the description down below and use code Akagami to get 10% off your order. So what are you waiting for? Improve your sleep today by buying sleep masks from Manta Sleep. But now, let's get back to our video. Now, we did mention a couple underrated moments where Luffy saved Nami, but one of my favorite underrated moments has to do with Nami protecting someone else. You see, back in Arlong Park, Nami had to prove her loyalty to Arlong and maintain her facade as a member of his crew. Because of that, she was tasked to kill Usopp. But instead of doing that, she stages Usopp's death by pretending to stab him with a knife. In reality, she stabs her own hand to create the illusion of killing Usopp. This scene carries significant emotional weight as it showcases the lengths to which Nami is willing to go for the sake of her loved ones. It also reveals the inner turmoil she faces as she navigates her complex situation under Arlong's oppressive rule. This moment serves as a turning point in Nami's character development within the arc. It highlights her strength, resilience, and strategic thinking, setting the stage for eventual liberation and reunion with the Straw Hat Pirates. And yet, that was not the only underrated moment that had to do with Nami in that arc. Hear this next! Nami's confession to Nojiko was one damn powerful and quite underrated, if you ask me, moment. The moment when Nami tearfully confesses to her sister Nojiko about her plan to buy back their village from Arlong is deeply emotional. It showcases her inner turmoil and the burden she carried alone for so long. She did not reveal this to anyone until the very moment she had gathered enough money to buy everyone's freedom. Next, I would like to speak about some speeches that took place throughout One Piece. And let me tell you, there were some absolutely chilling ones throughout the series. Among those, some of them naturally received their fair praise, but some of them, well, hey, that's the topic of today's video. They were quite underrated. One of my favorites was Luffy's speech in Udon Prison. Now, I'm not even joking. I don't recall how many times I rewatched this scene over and over again. The background music, music, the voice acting, the emotion, the messages, and inspiration slowly building up. Now that's how you make a speech to people with a broken will to fight. Luffy's speech serves as a powerful rallying cry for the prisoners of Udon. He boldly declares his intention to fight against Kaido and offers them a chance to join him in rebellion. His words ignite hope and courage among the prisoners, inspiring them to stand up against their oppressors. Was that the only powerful and at the same time underrated speech Luffy gave? Not quite, because this next one is actually among my favorite speeches in One Piece. You see, before Luffy gives his speech, Sanji finds himself in an incredibly difficult position. He's forcibly taken back to Whole Cake Island by his family, the Vinsmokes, who threaten the lives of his friends in exchange for his compliance. Sanji is emotionally torn between his loyalty to his crew, whom he considers his true family, and his sense of duty towards his biological family. Despite the challenges and Sanji's attempts to distance himself from the crew for their safety, Luffy refuses to abandon his friend. He shows unwavering belief in Sanji's goodness and in their bond forged through countless adventures. The moment where Luffy's voice cracks while saying that he cannot become Pirate King without him gave me literal chills. But the chills I got from this next moment don't even compare with anything so far mentioned. You see, back in Sabaody Archipelago, the Straw Hat Pirates meet Rayleigh at Shaki's Rip-Off Bar. Rayleigh offers to coat their ship, the Thousand Sunny, for their journey to Fishman Island. During their conversation, Usopp, curious about the ultimate treasure, directly asks Rayleigh if he knows where the One Piece is located. And oh boy, you better believe that Luffy was ready to explode. Luffy's decision underscores one of the central themes of One Piece, the value of the journey over the destination. For Luffy and his crew, the adventures, friendships, and experiences they gather along the way are as important, if not more so, than the treasure itself. Luffy's refusal to take the shortcut and learn the One Piece's location aligns with the series' emphasis on discovery and exploration. It shows his desire to uncover the world's mysteries himself, rather than having the answers handed to him. But okay, truth be told, Luffy's not always epic, since, sometimes, let's be honest, he's quite stupid. Well, among his stupid moments, there was one very specific one that I believe is among the funniest moments in the series, and yet I don't see anyone talking about it. You see, Luffy's song where he just calls people stupid is enough reason to watch One Piece as is. Well, the cool fact about that is that Luffy only sung half of the song before he was actually interrupted by Wiper. What are the rest of the verses? As it turns out, Oda wrote about this in an SBS. But oh well, since I'm not the best singer in the world, let's just say that Luffy just went on to call the rest of the world idiots as well. Okay, let's up the tone now a bit, shall we? Let's speak about Jinbei's separation from the Big Mom pirates. I mean, damn, imagine calling the bloodthirsty Big Mom a quote mere Yonko right in her face while she also prepares to attack. Jinbei's declaration is a powerful assertion of his free will and determination to follow his own path. He refuses to be bound by fear or coercion, choosing instead to align with the Straw Hat Pirates, whose values of freedom and friendship resonate with him. Added to the fact that Big Mom's attack had absolutely no effect on Jinbei, since my guy was not even a little bit scared of her. Yeah, this dude Jinbei is as cold as it gets. But speaking of cold, let's talk about Zoro next. Well, the moment I'll speak about now is kinda cursed, so you better prepare for it. Okay, I'll now ask you a question. Do you remember the only 3 times that Zoro ever cried? We have one moment being during Queena's death, the second being after he lost to Mihawk and promised to Luffy to never lose again. But do you remember the 3rd moment Zoro cried? Exactly! That's why this moment deserves a place in our list. The 3rd moment was none other than when Zoro found out that Kokoro is a mermaid. The shock was so big that Zoro could not help himself but cry. Talk about a man's dreams shatter in front of his very eyes. And now, let's explain the thumbnail of the video. No, before you come at me, it was not a trap. I truly believe that Law revealing to Nico Robin his real name, aka Trafalgar D. Water Law, was of great significance that many people overlook. And yeah, before I proceed to explain why, where did your mind go? I obviously meant that when Robin was asking Law about the D, that was referring to the clan name. I mean, duh, what else did you think? But seriously, Law revealing his true name to Robin shows that he actually trusts her enough to reveal this big secret to her. Not many people know about it, and Law obviously keeps it a secret as much as he can. The fact that he chose to reveal it to Robin, now, well, call me crazy, but I do believe that Oda is preparing the ground for the two of them ending up together in the future. But speaking of moments that made the One Piece community ship 2 characters together, this next one is probably one of the most well-known ones, and yet it is still quite underrated. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Nami and Luffy will end up together, especially since Oda stated that there will be no romance between the Straw Hats, but the underrated part was something else. You see, Luffy giving the Straw Hat to Nami was one heck of a powerful moment. The Straw Hat itself is a powerful symbol within the series, representing Luffy's dreams, his connection to Shanks, and his identity as a pirate. The fact that Luffy casually gives the Straw Hat to Nami before marching to take care of Arlong symbolized a kind of exchange. Luffy will take care of Arlong, and Nami will protect Luffy's dreams in the form of the Straw Hat. This way, there's something like an even exchange for Luffy. Nami accepting the Straw Hat was basically her introduction into the Straw Hat crew, where each member is willing to protect the dreams of the other. Something similar to that is the moment where Nami realized that all the treasure in the world is worthless without her friends. This moment takes place during Skypiea. Especially in this this arc, where gold is pretty much everywhere around, while the Straw Hats were fighting Enel, it made Nami realize that the true treasure in her life is not gold or riches, but the bond she shares with her crew. Once again, something that agrees with the general theme of One Piece. Okay, hear me out. We spoke quite a bit about Nami so far, so now let's move on to another Straw Hat next. Zoro! You see, a few episodes before Skypiea, during Jaya arc, Luffy and Zoro are confronted by Bellamy inside a bar. When Bellamy attacks Luffy, instead of fighting back, Luffy tells Zoro to simply take it. This moment, in my opinion, is underrated for quite a few reasons, but mostly because most people did not really understand its significance. Hear me out. First of all, it shows what length Zoro is willing to go when his captain asks him to. From Zoro's perspective, Luffy is asking him something unreasonable, as he does not really know what Luffy is thinking, and yet Zoro blindly follows his captain, even if it means he might be killed because of that. Now, the underrated moment, to be honest, was not only on Zoro's side, as Luffy's reasons were a bit misunderstood as well. The first reason Luffy did that, which, yeah, was what most people understood, was that he was mimicking Shanks' behavior in the bar when Luffy was a kid. It shows that Luffy now understands Shanks' reasons, unlike when he was a kid. The second reason Luffy did not fight back was because Luffy actually fights for only two reasons. One, if someone is getting in the way of his or his friend's goals, and two, if someone is actively hurting innocent people. If neither of those conditions is met, then Luffy does not fight. And finally, the third reason Luffy did not want to fight was because a few episodes before that, he had promised Nami that they would not fight. Luffy simply kept his promise once again. Okay, Zoro chose to opt out of violence in our previous point, but how about when Zoro chooses violence? You see, another quite underrated moment in One Piece was when Zoro cut money in half. Zoro's behavior was not just epic, but also his quote of, "Have you ever seen a wild animal you were sure would not attack?" was cold as well. As Monet started to bite harder on Tashigi's shoulder, Zoro cut her in the cheek, making her let go of Tashigi. She was surprised at first because she assumed Zoro would never attack women, but got outright frozen in fear as she saw the swordsman rush towards her. Monet was then sliced vertically in half by Zoro and, well, found out the hard way that some people should indeed not be taken lightly. Okay, next, let's speak about yet another victim of Zoro, Ryuma. Not many people realize this, but Zoro defeating Ryuma was a much bigger accomplishment than most people think. You see, Ryuma was not just a legendary samurai, but as a matter of fact, he was one of the strongest samurai that ever lived. Yeah, I assume that being nothing more than bones does take away some of your strength, but still, this accomplishment of Zoro is no joke, and it's definitely way more significant than just yet another opponent Zoro defeated. But hold on, because there's another underrated moment in that same arc. You see, Fortnite is quite popular these days. For anyone wondering where I'm going with that, well, give me a moment. Now, one of the most known mechanics of that game is the ability to build stairs on the go while you move. Well, what if I told you that Franky did exactly that way before Fortnite? Yep, Franky basically did the Fortnite stairs build before it was cool, and probably none of you realized it until now. But back to Zoro. We have yet another two final moments for him that we believe are quite underrated. You see, the first one took place during Little Garden arc, where the Straw Hats are put up against Galdino, a former officer agent of Baroque Works and a devil fruit user with the powers of the Doru Doru no Mi, or wax fruit in English. The devil fruit, as the name suggests, allows him to create and manipulate wax. Well, as it turns out, this devil fruit is way more overpowered than we originally thought, as this dude went on to immobilize all of Vivi, Luffy, and Zoro. Zoro's reaction, after seeing he cannot break free and that his body would freeze like a statue in a few minutes, or even seconds, Zoro went ahead to take a cool pose. The reason for that? He said that if anyone ever creates a statue for him, that's the pose he wants them to make for him. The underrated part of this moment? They actually made a real-life statue of him in Kumamoto, and the pose they chose? Exactly this one. In a sense, making Zoro's wish come true. And finally for Zoro, one somewhat comical moment. You see, back in Sabaody arc, St. Charlos was walking through the streets of the town. Naturally, since people did not want to be killed, they all bowed in the presence of St. Charlos. Zoro being, well, you know, Zoro, did not even bother and straight up continued his walk with a drink on his hand. St. Charlos naturally stared at him in disbelief, as this was something entirely new to him. Well, Zoro's reaction was to say, quote, "You want directions or something?" I mean, not many people realize this, but please, for the love of God, Zoro cannot be that delusional. Not only does he not know the difference between right and left, he also tries to offer directions to other people as well? Yeah, that's definitely insane. But speaking of insane, please tell me I'm not the only one that thinks Chopper's Monster Point transformation was absolutely insane. You see, the Straw Hat Pirates, including Chopper, were on a mission to rescue Nico Robin from the world government stronghold Enies Lobby. During the battle against the CP9 agents, Chopper faced off against Kumadori, a skilled martial artist. Despite Chopper's efforts, Kumadori proved to be a formidable opponent. Chopper had already used 3 Rumble Balls in a short period, which was dangerous and not recommended. Upon consuming the 4th Rumble Ball, Chopper underwent a monstrous transformation known as Monster Point. In this form, Chopper loses control and gains immense strength and size, becoming a near unstoppable force. Now, I don't know about you, but I found Chopper's sacrifice insanely epic, and for sure, quite underrated as well. But speaking of sacrifices, Bon Clay's sacrifice at Impel Down to ensure Luffy's escape is a powerful moment that underscores themes of friendship friendship and loyalty, even between former enemies. And in my opinion, I don't see anyone speaking about it. You see, Luffy infiltrates the underwater prison Impel Down to rescue his brother Portgas D. Ace, who is scheduled for execution. Luffy reunites with Bon Clay in Impel Down, and despite being former enemies, they share a mutual respect and friendship. Bon Clay decides to help Luffy in his mission to save Ace. However, Luffy is severely poisoned by Warden Magellan and is on the brink of death. Bon Clay not only helps Luffy survive, but he also goes a step further than that. The escapees make their way to the Gates of Justice, which need to be opened for their ship to pass through. Bon Clay stays behind at the control room to operate the gates manually. Despite knowing that staying behind means facing Magellan and the possibility of death, Bon Clay decides to do it for the sake of his friends, particularly Luffy. He successfully opens the Gates of Justice, allowing Luffy and the others to escape. And yet, that was not the only underrated sacrifice in One Piece, because in my opinion, this next one is in a sense even more touching. Which moment is that? Senor Pink's backstory. You see, his past reveals a tragic and touching story. Senor Pink was once a happily married man with a wife named Russian and a newborn son, Gimlet. However, tragedy struck when Gimlet died of a fever, and Russian fell into a coma after discovering Senor Pink's true identity as a pirate, which he had to keep hidden to protect her. During Russian's coma, Senor Pink visited her every day at the hospital. One day, to try to make her smile, he wore a baby bonnet, which reminded her of their lost son. Miraculously, the sight of Senor Pink dressed in the baby bonnet brought a faint smile to Russian's face, the first sign of any reaction since her coma. Hoping to see her smile again, Senor Pink continued to dress as a baby. He adopted the baby attire as his regular outfit, despite the ridicule and confusion it brought from others. Now let's take it back a bit, all the way to Loguetown, where two powerful moments took place. The first was Luffy reminding the bartender of Roger. Luffy's energy and ideals, as well as general behavior, were so similar to Roger's that the bartender could not help himself but seeing Roger in Luffy. This moment highlights that Luffy is in every way marching in Roger's step and is the true successor of his will and dreams. Once again, I don't believe that enough people speak of this moment. The second underrated moment taking place in this arc was Luffy's execution. Now, pretty much any sane person would react negatively in this situation, but not Luffy. His reaction of smiling in the face of death once again reinforces the idea that Luffy places more value in the journey rather than the destination. If this means that during his journey he ends up dying, that would not make him sad, as during the process of chasing his goals, he was doing what he loved and what he thought was right. Other than the great parallel with Roger this moment portrayed, it also sent some powerful messages to the viewers that, in my opinion, not many of us picked up. Moving on, we have this moment with Mont Blanc Noland. The story of Mont Blanc Noland, a man whose truth was turned into legend and who died branded a liar, adds a layer of tragic heroism and explores themes of legacy and misunderstood greatness, especially when you consider that many One Piece fans even skipped Skypiea. Well then, yeah, this moment definitely deserves a spot in our list. Up next, Fujitora wishing to be able to see just so he can see how Luffy looks like. Now try to imagine this a bit. He willingly denied himself the ability to see, and as far as we know, up until that moment, he never regretted this choice. And yet of all the things that can make Fujitora wish he could see again, Fujitora is only seen wanting to see how Luffy looks more than anything. And all of that while Luffy is a pirate, aka the group that Marines are meant to fight. On to the final three moments. The next moment I believe many people easily forget is Luffy's blood transfusion from Jinbei. Similarly to how we analyzed in previous videos we made, this was a highly symbolic moment emphasizing on unity above all, tackling matters like racism and discrimination between different races and cultures. Moving on to Shu. You see, Shu's sacrifice in the sea train was surely underrated. During the Water 7 arc, Shu shows his bravery by facing the Aqua Laguna on the sea train to rescue Nico Robin. His unwavering loyalty and courage highlight the spirit of determination to fight for what he thinks is right. And finally, we left one of the best moments for last. Franky telling Nico Robin that her existence is not a sin. Robin's tragic past is marked by the destruction of her homeland Ohara by the world government due to their research on the poneglyphs and the Void Century. As a child, she was branded a criminal and spent her life on the run, believing she was cursed and her existence brought doom to those around her. When Franky tells her that her existence is not a sin, these words are profoundly moving for Robin. They validate her worth and reject the notion that she is cursed or inherently evil. Franky's declaration signifies acceptance and offers Robin the emotional support she has lacked for most of her life. Click on this video next, where we break down and explain the MVP of each One Piece arc. Go on, check it out!